and maybe even some more creatures, because he's going to draw them with the Deadshot Minotaur. If he goes for it now, though, well, so it looks like Ari went ahead and got a basic forest here.
Yeah. Joe also, I see, has a Ricochet Trap in his hand that allows him to effectively nix a counterspell if Ari has a negate again. Does not do anything against Glenalendra Archmage if Ari can get that out, but Ari here, sitting on one land, is a little further away from doing that. He's going to get in with his Voice of Resurgence. And just pass the turn back. I see that Gavany Township in hand. Ari's playing this really patiently.
He's trying to hedge in case Joe Hamon decides to go off on this turn.
Yeah. Joe draws Jungle Weaver to go along with this Ingot Chewer.
Now, is this is going to benefit Joe, though, right? Like, because if Joe just sits here and cycles creatures a lot, and Ari's not hitting land drops and only has a clock with a 2/2, I mean, can't Joe just kind of build up his graveyard so that it's huge?
Yeah.
Remember, cycling isn't casting a spell, so that's not going to trigger the Voice of Resurgence there. So Joe's free to pass the turn back and kind of go as he sees fit. Here's an Arid Mesa for Ari.
And he's going to play Noble Hierarch. Ari's going to get in for 3. Okay, Jungle Weaver gets cycled.
Yeah, Rashad mentions, too, that Joe can also, sometimes you just cast a 4/4 for 5, and it's the biggest thing on the table. Sometimes you just cast a Deadshot Minotaur and kill his Birds of Paradise.
Well,
Travis Wu's one of the people that kind of popularized this deck in Old Extended, and it's transferred over here to Modern. And, I mean, one of the things he loves to do is just cast Jungle Weaver. It's a huge creature. It's really hard to attack through, and it's very often the biggest thing on the battlefield. Your opponent is in a weird position because if you just start casting those things, what are they going to do? If they counter it, then it opens them up to potentially getting comboed off. And if they don't, well, they're facing down, 5-power reach guys and 4/4s that have to attack.
Okay, Violent Outburst here. Let's see if Ari wants to do something. Living End's going to be peeled off the top thanks to Cascade.
Ari Lax paying close attention, though, to the kind of things that he's up against here. Wants to see if there's any sideboard stuff that he wasn't expecting. He's going to keep going. There is the only card in his deck that he can hit, so this is a guaranteed hit for him. The entire deck is designed around doing this play right here exactly. And it looks like it's a little bit further down than normal, but these aren't milled away or anything, so this won't really affect anything. They're going to be randomized and put on the bottom of his library. Now, if he boarded out all of his living ends, it gets a little awkward, but
I know he's got one
unlikely.
living end in hand.
All right. You should have 2 more in the deck. I think most of them run 3, right?
Yes. Okay, there we go, living end. And now Ari has a chance to have some responses. I see he's got a Path to Exile in hand. He can try getting out some more mana by pathing one of his creatures or holding up a path to get rid of one of Joe's creatures. Remember, Joe does have that Fulminator Mage in hand, but Ari's been smart. He's gotten a basic forest and still has a fetch land. And Ari here is going to Path to Exile his Noble Hierarch. That's going to let him get a 3rd land. And maybe give him a chance.
Now, how many basics does Ari have in this deck? I mean, we've seen him.
It looks like he's got a Plains,
get 2 of them,
forest, and that's it.
So is that Arid Mesa actually dead?
Well, he can go get non-basic land.
Yeah, I just mean with the Fulminator Mage sitting out there.
Yes. Effectively, Ari doesn't forget about the elemental he gets. It's pretty important. And Ari draws negate. Not very helpful this stage in the game. One of that last
little bit
turn.
late. He had a Noble Hierarch and a Birds he could have used to cast it, so 1 turn late for that negate there. He does have a Birthing Pod, though.
He's got a couple.
But
and that's the match. Joe Hamon defeats Ari Lax 2 games to 1.
Joe Hamon positioned himself very well, and Ari saw no way out and concedes.
Wow. Ari, after kind of running the tables day one, having a great finish here day two, ends his tournament in the quarterfinals. We're going to take a look at the lifetime money winners. Magic the Gathering. Ari Lack's not on this list, but maybe he will be in the future.
Hey, he's off to a great start this season. He can start thinking about that in about 10 years, but
yeah. I mean, I wonder how many people on this list aren't Hall of Famers. We've got Luis Scott Vargas.
Right.
We've got Antoine Rose, not a Hall of Famer, I believe.
I don't think so. I think only Olivier is.
Yes, and Shota Yasuoka, Katsura Mori, Tomoharu Saito.
Mm-hmm. Camille Cornelissen.
Yeah. Quite a few non-Hall of Famers.
But this
is also not a Hall of Famer. But I mean, this is kind of one of the benchmarks I know a lot of people who have votes for the Hall of Fame are looking at to decide whether or not they want to vote for people. As we've said previously, everybody from Raphael Levy up is in the Hall of Fame. Tons of the other people are in the Hall of Fame. Luis Scott Vargas seems to be a shoo-in.
He is getting the talk. The water cooler talk is that he's in.
And here's the list sorted by pro points of people who are eligible for the Hall of Fame this year. Tomoharu Saito sitting at the top. Luis Scott Vargas just after Saito. Shota Yasuoka at 321 points, and Martin Yuza, the Czech Republic, 318 points.
That is a lot of pro points for Martin. He's not very old either.
No.
He could make a ton in his career.
We're going back to the Seth Manfield versus Brandon Nelson match. Play has started. Seth has a Deathrite Shaman out early.
Brandon Nelson has about 1 million ways to kill a Deathrite Shaman if he wants to do that. Looks like Brandon Nelson got Thought Seized on turn 1, and Snapcaster Mage hit the bin.
Recall Seth won the previous game by comboing out with Murderous Redcap, Malira, and Cartel Aristocrat. Brandon just lays a second Scalding Tarn. Taking a look at his hand, I see a Path to Exile and a bunch of lands. So no counter magic here, but Seth's got to be aware of it. I mean, facing down all those cards from Brandon Nelson, you've got to imagine that he's got something. Although he could just jam out a Birthing Pod here if he has it, and immediately search up a 2-drop. He's going to go ahead and generate a mana by removing a land card from a graveyard and cast Murderous Redcap. That's going to deal 2 damage to Brandon Nelson.
Not the most threatening creature on its own for Brandon Nelson.
Especially since Brandon has Path to Exile. He draws a key Relic of Progenitist here. It's pretty important.
Relic is one of the ways you can interact with the Infinite combo. If they don't have any cards in their graveyard, you can activate it and make them exile with the Persist trigger on the stack. Even if they do, you can just crack your Relic with the Persist trigger on the stack as well.
Back to Seth's turn. Let's see what he does here. He's keeping his cards tough for us to see. Well, he's going to bash in for potentially 3 damage. Brandon's going to activate Relic.
Now that doesn't target any cards in the graveyard. It just targets the player, makes him remove a card. There just happened to be only 1 there. It's free to tap the Relic as well. It does cost 1 mana to sack it and exile all cards in all graveyards, draw a card, but. All right, looks like Path is going to hit something here.
The red
Most
cap?
likely the red cap. Yeah, the Deathrite Shaman's pretty marginalized by that.
Yeah.
Relic.
Also, Seth's not really in a position to use it for any of its abilities at this moment. Okay, so Seth fetched out his land from the path to exile. You have to imagine he's got a drop here, right? Seems like he's in a good position. He'll play Overgrown Tomb untapped. And Obstinate Bailoff. That'll game him 4 life.
Yeah, the life gain not as consequential at this point in the match, but Obstinate Bailoff, now that's a beater there. Nothing will make short work of a life total if it doesn't get dealt with, and it's kind of hard to deal with having 4 toughness. Helix and Bolt don't kill it by themselves.
I mean, Obstinate Bailoff in Seth's deck against the Junk and Jun decks, the decks with Liliana the Veil, but quite good here. Able to gain some life for Seth, and as you said, have a nice big 4/4 on the battlefield. Okay, well, Nelson's turn here. He draws a Shadow of Doubt off the top. Not really what he wants to see. I can't imagine him just cycling it right here, but he probably does want to play that Tectonic Edge and get rid of the Gavany Township. That is what he does. And he passes it back to Seth.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that Seth can get ahead on the board without actually using cards from his hand. Brendan Nelson wants to crimp how much mana he has in general and the ability to use that as a potential win condition. Is it Think Twice in hand?
I think he's got all
or is
lands.
it? Oh, okay. Shadow of Doubt?
Shadow of Doubt.
Okay.
Shadow of Doubt on screen for you guys there.
Yep, there it is.
Quite good against many decks in this format. Kind of a forgotten card from the original Ravnica. Obstinate Bailoff going to come in here for 4. That'll drop Brandon down to 13 life. And Thoughtseize. So Brandon probably doesn't cycle here, right?
I mean, whatever he cycles can just get taken away anyway.
Oh, he's going to cast Shadow of Doubt.
Okay. Maybe he can find something to cast in response.
Draws Cryptic.
All right, well.
Say goodbye to Cryptic.
This is Cryptic.
I mean, I guess there's the advantage of Shadow of Doubt making it so Seth can't play and activate Pod here. He could just play it, though. Does give more fuel for the Deathrite Shaman. Put a 2-turn clock on Brandon with that Obstinate Bailoff. What do you have, Seth? 3 mana Kitchen Finks. That's going to bump his life total up to 19.
Yeah, and he just keeps committing threats to the board here. Obstinate Bailoff, Kitchen Finks, and a Deathrite Shaman. That's going to make short work of Brandon Nelson if he can't find a way to stabilize. Now this is where a Wrath effect would be awesome for him. Unfortunately, he draws a land, has 3 lands in hand, plays one for the turn, has a Celestial Colonnade, cannot activate it yet. Looks like he's just going to take a big hit of damage here this turn. At some point, he can cycle that Relic of Progenitus and draw a card from it. It is protecting him from getting comboed out, but he's got bigger problems he's facing down right now.
facing down 7, 9, 11 damage potentially if he's got nothing here. He needs just a land to fire up that Celestial Colonnade. But in response... Okay, so Seth activated Deathrite Shaman to go remove a card from the graveyard. In response, Brandon is going to counter it by sacrificing Relic of Progenitus.
And importantly, drawing a card so that you can try to find some answer to the board state that Seth has presented. I mean, there's not much to it. It's a 1, a 3, and a 4, but they're huge, and there's a Gavany Township now.
Make that a 5, a 4, and a 2.
Yeah, it would put him down to 1 if he attacked with all 3 and then activated the Township. He can also just leave the Deathrite Shaman available. Looks like he doesn't want to. Here's a Birthing Pod.
I'm not sure what he's afraid of, right? 9 plus 2 is 11, last time I checked.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right?
The Obstinate Bailiff would be a 5/5.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, but he decided not to move in. He's going to face down a Snapcaster Mage, which is just going to chump block here. Yeah, the Birthing Pod and then the attack is a little strange. Well, it looks like Brandon Nelson's going to survive this turn either way.
You basically, if you're Seth here, it's kind of the same, right? You basically have to make Brandon have it, and if he doesn't have it, then you can sacrifice your Kitchen Finks
to go get a red cap.
Red cap.
Yeah, exactly.
So here, Brandon's going to take 5, go to 6, and now Seth has the ability to go find something awesome. Not sure what that is. What Seth has in mind. He's played quite a few rounds here. He knows what he's doing with his deck. What are the best things to get off of Birthing Pod every time?
When he fetched it. So he went from 19 to... Did I take... Let's see. I've taken...
Players here double checking.
Then to 16. 2 for the Birthing Pod.
Seth thinking about what he wants to do.
18. Sorry. What do you have again? 18 is the I've gained 8.
Yeah, so they're checking, making sure the life totals are all
Just double checking.
good.
So 18-6.
And we've got
Pretty relevant here.
Yeah, so Brandon's sitting at 6. Seth is going to activate Birthing Pod. He's at 18.
Had an incorrect count on the life total. The display on the screen should be 4.
And he's going to go get a Ranger of Eos, it looks like. That'll get him 2 1-drops. One's going to be a Deathrite Shaman. The other is going to be something. Another Deathrite Shaman, okay. Pair of Deathrite Shamans for Seth. So
Seth looks to be in pretty amazing shape here.
yeah.
Even a sweeper for Brandon Nelson's not going to get him out of this. He draws in a Johnny Vengeant. 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, that Gavany Township is looming. You know, if he uses a Johnny Vengeance to keep the Baloth tapped, he'd need a path as well to survive.
So he's got to use the Johnny's.
Seth has shown that he didn't want to move in on the Township before, but he probably will this time.
Brandon casts a Johnny Vengeant. He's going to Lightning Helix away the Ranger of Eos.
Okay.
It's going to put him up to 9. And Brandon plays a land, giving him access to fire up that Colonnade on the following turn. Seth draws his card for the turn. We know he's got 2 Deathrite Shamans in hand.
Quite good. I drew 1 game that 1 out. Well, and intentionally drew the last one.
And here he goes, trying to figure out if there's a way for him to win this turn.
Certainly taking a tactful approach here, thinking through every possible iteration.
Yeah. I blew up a lot of lands. if you tried to engage free, you know, he has
Pump fake us with a little.
Okay, Thoughtseize. He's got to land.
Now he knows that the coast is clear.
What does that do for him?
And it doesn't have quite enough to just attack for the win. He can attack for 7. So he's got to decide based on the cards in his hand how he wants to proceed here. If he wants to hit for 7, he's going to have to activate the township. So he's just going to hit for 4 and take out a Johnny Vengeance. But this is really important. He knows that his opponent is down to nothing here. He gets 1 draw step. And even then, Seth Manfield still has a birthing pod online, a couple of Deathrite Shamans in hand, a Gavany Township that's active. Like, he just has so much going for him, and he's facing down a land.
Yeah. I mean, and the Celestial Colonnade.
The Celestial Colonnade is something that can block next turn.
Seth really does not want to make a mistake here. Playing slowly. He's going to use Birthing Pod, sacrifice the Deathrite Shaman, search through his deck for a 2
It's like a
mana
voice
creature.
is the go-to 2-drop in the deck. Let's see if he comes up with something different this time.
He's pulled Voice to the front.
Yeah.
Yep. Voice of Resurgence comes into play. And is Seth going to commit any of his Deathrite Shamans to the board? There's one. He knows that Nelson has nothing.
Yeah, there's no reason to put the second one down. And what does Brandon find? Well, a Mana Leak, a reactive spell that is not going to get the job done here. Now, I don't think there's any... Are there any targets right now for Deathrite Shaman as far as doing 2 damage or 2 life loss to Brandon Nelson?
Not sure.
I don't think there is. I think there's like a Snapcaster Mage under that of Johnny.
Well, Seth's going to go to attack step, attack with his Voice of Resurgence and his Ravenous Baloth.
Obstinate,
Obstinate Baloth.
Yeah, he's going to activate the Colonnade. He has to throw it in front of the Baloth. We can get an activation of Gavany Township here, though. That's 3 damage from the Voice of Resurgence. And then if there's any way he can get an instant or sorcery into any graveyard, then he'll be able to finish off with the Deathrite Shaman here.
And that's the match.
That's going to do it right there.
Seth Manfield advances to the semifinals here at Grand Prix Kansas City. 2-0 over Brandon Nelson.